Hello everyone. My name is Rushikesh Dattatray Vedpathak, and today's date is 20th of July. And today's our video topic is exception in Java. I repeat, today's our video topic is exception in Java. Now, the exception handling in Java is one of the most powerful mechanism to handle the runtime errors so that the normal flow of the application can be maintained. So in this video we will learn about Java exceptions, its types, and the difference between checked and unchecked exceptions. So the first question is, what is exception in Java? So exception is an abnormal condition. In Java, an exception is an event that disrupts the normal flow of the program. It is an object which is thrown at runtime. Now the question is, what is exception handling? So exception handling is a mechanism to handle the runtime errors such as class not found exception, IO exception, etc., SQL exception, etc. Now we will learn exception hierarchy. The exception hierarchy in that all the exceptions and errors run our types are subclasses of class throwable, which is the top class of the hierarchy. The one of the branch is headed by the exception. This class is used for exceptional conditions that user programs should catch. Null pointer exception is an example of such an exception. Another branch if is error are used by the Java runtime system to indicate errors having with the runtime environment itself. The Stack Overflow error is an example of such error. So we will now learn how the JVM handle an exception. So in default exception handling, the first we will learn the default exception handling. So whenever inside the method, if an exception has occurred, the method creates an object known as exception object and hands it on the runtime system or the JVM. The exception objective terms and descriptions of the exception and current state of the program where exception has occurred, creating the exception object, handling it to the runtime system is called a throwable exception. There might be the list of two methods that had been called to get the method where exception was occurred. This ordered list of the method is called the call stack. Now we will learn we will learn the another procedures of this. So the runtime system searches the call stack to find the method that contains a block of code that can handle the occurred exception. So the block of the code is called exception handler. So the runtime system starts searching from the method in which exception occurred. It proceeds through the con stack in the reverse order in which methods were called. If it finds approximate handler, then it passes the occurred exception to it. Appropriate handler means the type of the exception object throw matches the type of the exception it can handle. So if runtime system searches all the methods or call stack and couldn't have found the appropriate handler, then runtime system hand over the exception handler. Now which is we will the sorry the handler prints the exception information in the in the format which I will tell. The core advantage of exception handling is to maintain the normal flow of the application, and the exception normally disrupts the normal flow of the application. That is why we use exception handling. Suppose there are 10 statements in your program, and the error occur at exception in statement 6. So the rest of the code will not execute. So that is from statement 7 to statement 10 will not be executed. If we perform exception handling, the rest of the statement will be executed. That is why we use exception handling in Java. So this is the advantage of exception handling. So there are some types of exception handling. So there are mainly two types of exception: checked exception and unchecked exception. Here an error is considered as unchecked exception according to the Oracle. There are the three types of the exception. The first one is checked, second one is unchecked, and the third one is error. So we will learn what is checked exception. So the classes which directly inherits throwable class except runtime exception and error are known as checked exception. For example, IO exception, SQL exception, etc. So checked exceptions are checked at compile time. Now we will move on to the next type, which is unchecked exception. The classes which inherit the runtime exception are known as the unchecked exception. For example, null point exception, array index out of bound exception, etc. So unchecked exceptions are not checked at compile time, but they are checked at runtime. Now we will move on to the next type, which is error. So error is irrecoverable. For example, out of memory error, virtual machine error, assertion error, etc. Now we will move on to the next important point, which is Java exception keyword. There are five keywords which are used in handling exceptions in Java. So the first one is try. So the try keyword is used to specify a block where we should place exception code. The try block must be followed by either catch or finally. It means we can't use try block alone. The next keyword is catch. So the catch block is used to handle the exception. It must be preceded by the try block, which means we can't use catch block alone. It can be followed by the finally block later. Now we will move on to the next exception keyword, which is finally. The finally block is used to execute the important block of the program. So it is executed whether an exception is handled or not. So the next important exception keyword is throws. Throw keyword is used to throw an exception. Now we will move on to the next last the last keyword, which is throws. The throws keyword is used to declare exceptions. It does not throw an exception. It specifies that there may occur an exception in the method. It is always used with the method signature. This is all about the exception in Java. Thank you.